pass the mic around. Yeah, can you say that again? Please say that again.
I was saying that the financial tone in the home, it makes sense. We have to think about it's our and it's we, not mine's and mine's alone. Because if we start thinking that way, then it's difficult to communicate with that I provide for the family. I is we. So the money I work is not just mine, it's our money. So we can budget our money. So that's one of the, I believe, is one of the hardest thing to have in the home, especially when two persons, husband and wife is working. Both are working separate jobs. It's hard to come together. But you say it's my money, not your money. So it's very hard, in my opinion.
Oliver, I understand what you're saying, but when you, as a child of God, like both of you are children of God, and you spend time in devotion, spend time together in the Word, it becomes ours. It's not mine, it's not yours, it becomes ours. So it takes dedication on both sides. It's you gotta practice it, live it, and when that is done, and you have that budget plan together, you'll make it. It will go through. Okay.
All really great points. And one of the things that I always, allude to when it comes to somebody putting something new into practice, there's three components that hold us back from doing something. It's either there's a fear, there's a belief, or a habit. And right now, Oliver, as you were sharing, that mindset of my money, your money, rather than our money, it's a belief. It's a habit.
Yes.
We're used to being one. And we all know that marriage is something that takes time as you're establishing that. You go through your courtship, but then once you get married, honeymoon phase is over. That's when you really find out who you married, right? But it's in those moments that you're really trying to understand and find that common ground. That's where you're trying to understand them and they're understanding you. And that's where compromise comes into place, right? Again, as men that are here, we're learning about this information and how important it is. The value is something that I need to be able to communicate with my spouse. I need to be able to help them see how does it benefit them, because the truth of the matter is everyone wants to know what do I get out of it, right? If I'm going to do something, if I'm going to change a behavior, if I'm going to change a belief, what's the benefit that I get? So it's your job to identify what's that benefit. You know your wife better than anybody. You know what she likes, you know what she doesn't like. So speak her language. Speak her language in terms of what is it something that she may be desiring, or what she really cares for, or what she values, and how you incorporate that into the language of why it's so important to have a budget. Because now when you can help her to understand and see the value of that budget, now it becomes a no-brainer. And now you guys can now put your heads together and figure out how can we move forward. All right?
Yeah, just on that point, I think it's a thing of habit. So, when you say, I actually did this maybe a couple of days ago when I was talking about my account. And I started saying, I think I said it more than once, and I told her, I said, what, when I say my account, I mean our account. I just say this, what's kind of talking about. So I think it's just something that you got to work towards, And if you don't have a joint account with your wife, then now would be a good time when you budget until you start one. Try to strictly put 100% of your funds, both your funds in the same account. So that would be a good start. The next thing we have, and the last point on this one, is helps you beat financial debt. Okay, so yeah, speaks for itself. Anybody like to add anything else?
Is there anything as good debt? Is financial debt completely unavoidable, or is there such thing as good debt? Is there anything? I mean, for example, you may have a home or student loans, but I mean, there's individuals out there that actually pay this student loan off before they graduate from school. So is there such thing as good debt versus, is it unavoidable, or is like we have to be in debt?
think with that one, it depends on your situation. If you're born into wealth, and your parents, they put money aside for you to buy houses. I know people now who bought properties for their children and things like that. So for them, maybe not. They don't have to have that debt. But for most of us, at least if you're gonna own a house at some point, you're probably gonna have some debt. So I mean, yeah, you're gonna always end up with at least a little bit of debt at some point in your life, unless you're born into a wealthy family or something like that.
Also share a piece on this. So again, as we were going through these 9 weeks of really understanding the baby steps, what we were able to learn from the teachings of Dave Ramsey is that is something that you can avoid. I think that is something that we choose. And it's become more of, I guess you can say we become institutionalized to understanding that is something that we need in order to bring up that FICO score, or if we want to take out a credit card, we need to acquire debt. But what we come to realize is that the more debt we take on, the more that we consistently owe, right? So could I avoid debt? In some circumstances, yes, because there are certain things I don't need to buy. It's something that I want. In those situations where I want something, but I don't necessarily have the money, I don't necessarily need to take out a credit card. Perhaps there are certain things in my house that are collecting dust that I may be able to sell to have the finances in order to pay for that. Yeah. But again, it all goes back to the mindset, a belief, a habit, or a fear. So how you look at it is going to determine what decision that you make. So it all starts with the mind, because the mind is what drives the action. The action is what gives you the results that you come up with. All right?
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, even to piggyback on that, for like say for instance, if you do want to buy a house and you don't have one yet, you can, rent for a while, and you can afford that without going into debt. And then while you're renting, you're saving up for your money for your property, your car. A lot of the people who have done Dave Ramsey's class, they've actually drove around in cars that weren't so desirable, until they could save up enough money to actually buy the one that they wanted to with cash. So you don't necessarily have to have that. Most people who start Dave Ramsey do have at least some debt.
There's an important quote that we've been hearing all throughout those 9 weeks where it says, I live like no one else so that I can live like no one, so I can give like no one else, right? So in a sense, when you really think about that, you're putting yourself, yes, you're going through some sacrifices, right? You're going through some sacrifices in order to have the life that you desire, where you can give generously, where you can just show up somewhere and write a check for $50,000 and it's not going to hurt your pocket. And we can even speak to that in terms of what we're doing here, in terms of our spiritual life, right? Because we can be out in the world living the life that everyone thinks that we should be living. Going out to the clubs, drinking, having a good time, posting it on Instagram, doing the whole 9 yards. But we're sacrificing, we're giving all those things up to take up our cross every single day and follow Christ so that you can live the life that you want to live in heaven. So it all connects. It all connects. All right, so next we're actually going to get into the creating a budget using the every dollar method. So we're halfway through, but we want to make sure that we're leaving you guys with tangible things, with basic principles on how to create and to start a basic budget. All right, so the first one here is step 1, which is to write down your total income. All right, so in writing down your total income, you want to make sure that your total income equals your total income equals total income for the month after taxes. All right, so depending on how you get paid, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, you want to make sure that you're adding that up completely for the month. And you want to make sure that you're including your spouse if you're married. If you're not married, you can find an accountability partner that can kind of be there to support you, someone that you know, like, and trust, that you can hold you accountable to this particular budget. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure that you are adding into that total income, any additional income. So if you have a full-time job, you want to make sure that's incorporated into it. If you have a second job, you want to make sure that money is also included into that as well. So if you're doing something like a per diem or a part-time, all of that needs to be incorporated so that you can have a high-level number of what you make on a monthly basis. If you do freelance work, social security checks, so basically any check, any income that is coming your way, you want to make sure that that's incorporated into your monthly income. Any additional tips that you want to add? Okay. Step 2. So list all of your expenses. So this is where you can be very creative. You can decide whether you want to use an Excel spreadsheet, whether you want to use every dollar. Pretty much this is up to you. If you want to use a sheet and paper with a pen, hey, I'm old school. I like my pen and paper. I still use it to this day. My wife laughs at me, but it is what it is, right? But you want to make sure that you're listing all of your expenses from all your regular bills that you pay on a monthly basis. So whether it's your rent, if you're renting, your mortgage, if you own a home, anything in terms of like your utilities, things that you know that you're paying on a regular basis within that month. And then lastly, you also want to incorporate any irregular bills. Now that incorporates anything that is on a bi-monthly paying schedule or even on a quarterly paying schedule. We know that there are certain bills, especially here in Massachusetts, there's a car tax. That's something that I wasn't aware of because, you know, I'm from New York. So when I came out here and I see that they charge me $2 something, I'm like, what is this for? You know, just to own a car? Let's sell that baby, right? But reality is, these are certain things that I want to make sure that I'm incorporating into my budget, right? Because it's not something that I pay on a monthly basis. When it comes, but I need to kind of factor that in. That's why it's so important that when you're sitting down and you're doing your budget, you have your calendar out. You have all of your information out in terms of what gets paid during what months, what gets paid during what quarter or whatever time frame, and all of that is incorporated so that you can properly enter that information into your budget. Any additional pieces?
I think at that point, when you start to write down all your things, you might notice that you might have a few of those monthly payments that you don't need anymore. And I think as you start to see them on paper, this will be a good time to start canceling some of those things that you don't want to carry over into your budget.
All right, excellent point. Any questions before we move on to the third or the fourth step? Like I said, we're going through this. Yep. All right. So step number 3. So subtract your expenses from your income to equal 0. Now this is the every dollar method. Now I'm going to pass it over to Martin so he can just kind of give us a brief overview of what that is. And then we have a short video to show you a tutorial on how to utilize it and where you can actually find that application to be used either on your phone or your laptop computer. Martin?
Okay, well, some situations you want to know your gross income, but this one you want to know what your take home is. So after they take the taxes out of your check, you'll have your basic income, you and your spouses, or just you by yourself. Once you get that number, then you figure out, you got all your bills, you figure out what your expenses are. Once you get all those numbers together and what's left over, you should have 0. So you should basically take every single dollar that you have, and I believe that's what they call it, every dollar half. You're going to take every dollar that you have and you're going to put that towards something. So if you paid all your expenses with your budget, and you can start putting money towards other things or different savings, but every dollar will be accounted for. Yeah, question.
Brother Will said that after taxes, what's left after taxes? What about before taxes got to come out? Your tithes. That's the first thing that's got to come out. Right? But see, they take the taxes out before we take the tithes out. Before we take our tithes. So we have to still return our tithes and give a free will offering off of what's left after they already took out the taxes. But we still have to take out what the gross is, no matter what. I'm saying we'll get his, but God's got to come. And then what's left after that is where this comes in. Is that what you're saying?
That'll be included in your tithes will be included in your expenses. That's
okay. So after they take out your taxes, then you still got to take out the tithes on the gross that was before they took out the taxes, and then whatever else after that. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Good question.
Actually, important point that she made, right? Because a lot of people aren't aware of that, especially new believers that are coming into the faith. They may not necessarily know that. Although, yes, we're preaching about tithe and offering, I think it's extremely important that we make sure that they understand that it's what comes out of we're taking the 10% from the gross and not from the net. Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever they take even after taxes, we're still taking from the gross in terms of what we make. So let's say that your gross was $600, even though you probably only received $450, you still are going to take out in terms of tithes $60, and then there's also an additional percentage for your free will. All right, so equally as important. So thank you very much. So again, so this every dollar method, it's not a method for you to calculate or where you can, basically this particular method is to show you where every dollar is being spent. It gives you that sense of control that we talked about earlier in terms of where am I spending my money? Am I spending too much on groceries? Am I putting a little too much towards my miscellaneous expense? Should we cut down on that cable bill or get rid of cable altogether? Because some of that money we could be putting towards something else. So when we go through this every dollar method, it gives us an opportunity to really see where our money is being spent. How are we using it? Where can we make some adjustments? Because every month is going to adjust. Every month there's something different that's happening. Next month you may have to go to a wedding. You may have your wife's birthday that's coming up. And hey, you may have to put a little more towards the miscellaneous fund just for stuff like that. But that's why it says every dollar, because now you're able to have that bird's eye, high level view of how your money is being spent. That's why it's saying your income minus your expenses equals 0. So at the end, when you are doing that budget, you will hear in that video that will tell you that you have an every dollar budget, which shows that everything that you've calculated comes out to 0 and your money has been spent based on what your expenses are. All right. Any questions? Any last and final questions before we go to step number 4? No? Now, step number 4, track your spending. Now, this is something that the Every Dollar tool is actually designed for. It does all of your tracking for you, which is important. Because like I mentioned before, you don't need to be a mathematician, although that is a limited belief as to why people don't do a budget. You don't need to be good at math. You don't need to be a mathematician. All you need to do is be able to calculate or know your numbers, right? Pull up your bank statement and be able to have all of your bills and all of your expenses laid out so that you can put that information into the application. Once you're able to do that, that's going to help you track your spending. What are some key reasons why we want to track our spending? Any thoughts? All right, so we got some folks that are saying not to overspend. Anything else?
I've done that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And also to see if you're managing your funds correctly.
Yeah, if you're managing your funds correctly. Recently, because of this Financial Peace University, I've actually started putting into practice pulling out money and paying with cash rather than card. That's something that has become a habit of ours, right? No one walks around with card anymore. Now they make it so simple where you can just tap your phone and before you know it, the money is withdrawn. But now when you walk around with cash, it's a psychological thing. There's a transaction. I'm actually giving something in order to get something. So when I walk around with $100 and I know that $100 is in my pockets for groceries, I can't spend any more than that because that's all that I have. So if I get to the cashier and they tell me that the sum comes up to 101, something has to go, right? So it keeps me on track. It helps me not to overspend, and it helps me to stay within the budget that I've set for that particular expense for that month. So it's equally important that we're making sure that we are tracking our spending, whether we are using the every dollar method or whatever tracking system that you have, but it's important that you are tracking your spending. Any additional tips before we get to the video?
Now that is that if you do overspend in one of your things, it has to come from somewhere. So if you overspend on your food, you might be taking it out of your personal expenses, the budget, or things that you might be able to spend later on.
Excellent. So friends, as we mentioned to you before, last but not least, we have a short video clip, which is actually going to give you the breakdown of how to use the every dollar method, okay? And this is something that you will be hearing from Dave Ramsey's daughter herself, which is also a person who's been teaching people for many years on how to do financial planning. And I'm sure you will be blessed the same way that we have been blessed. And I'm sure you will be blessed the same way that we have been blessed.
Hey guys, welcome to Every Dollar. My name is Rachel Cruz and I'm Ramsey Personality, and I've been teaching people how to budget for years. To be honest, I used to hate it. Yes, seriously. But hey guys, welcome to now Every Dollar. My name is Rachel Cruz and I'm Ramsey Personality. No matter how you feel about teaching people how to budget for years. Worry. We're gonna walk. But hi guys, welcome to now Every Dollar. My name is Rachel Cruz and I'm Ramsey. No matter how you feel about teaching people how to budget for years. We're gonna walk.
Oh, that's good.
But hi guys, welcome to now Every Dollar. My name is Rachel Cruz. Hey guys, welcome to Every Dollar. My name is Rachel Cruz and I'm Ramsey Personality, and I've been teaching people how to budget for years. To be honest, I used to hate it. Yes, seriously. But I knew it was important, and now it's like second nature. Hey guys, welcome to Every Dollar. No matter how you feel about Cruz, and I'm Ramsey Personality, and I've been teaching people how to budget for years. Before we start, to be honest, open up your online bank account or grab your bank statements. But this will I knew it was important, all the numbers. And now it's like, hey guys, welcome to Every Dollar. No matter how you feel about Cruz, I'm Ramsey Personality, and I've been teaching people how to budget for years. Before we start, to be honest, dive in and set up your first budget in 3 steps. But this will I knew it was a budget all the numbers. Now it's like, hey guys, welcome to Every Dollar. No matter how any money you plan to get, Ramsey Personality, that means teaching people how to budget any extra money before we start. To be honest, dive in and set up garage sale budgets and freelance work. But this will I knew it was a budget. Here's how to enter your income. Hey guys, welcome to Every Dollar. No matter any money you plan to get, Ramsey Personality. That means teaching people how to budget any extra money before we start. To be honest, dive in and set up garage sale budgets and freelance work.